Dr. Ahmed, you're next.
Let me first thank Dr. Hedri for that very warm introduction. He's the president of the Crescent Peace Society. He had invited me last year, and when he picked me up at the airport with our friend Umar, he was telling me that his tenure is over. And of course, we were discussing the events taking place in Pakistan, where President Musharraf has simply declared a state of emergency. And I was just thinking, perhaps if the society was in Karachi or Lahore, Dr. Hedri would still remain as president and simply declare an emergency. But we are in the United States, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful we are in Kansas, because this festival of faiths really has uplifted my soul and my spirits. In a time of great misunderstanding and confrontation, to have a festival of faiths with the plural can make no greater and bolder statement than that we are one. I do want to thank a whole series of people, all the organizers in the festival. We met at dinner, the wonderful people who have supported it. Of course, Dr. Hedri and the whole team, Sheila, a wonderful friend who I met last year, Professor Beverly, the anthropologist from the university, Kay, who we met after many, many years. She's friends with my sister in the 60s. And of course, Tia Steeple, who's the mother of Joan from Washington. So many friends from Kansas, including Jean, and of course, finally, Bill himself for moderating this session. I would like to thank Judea Pearl for being a partner and a friend, for converting this challenge, perhaps the greatest, most fearful challenge any parent faces, the death, the untimely death of a child. And the death of this lovely young man who I've come to know through Judea Pearl. I've never met him. This man, at the height of his career, the height of his youth, cut off in this brutal, savage manner. This would have been the greatest challenge to any individual. And Judea rose to it. And Ruth, we must not forget his wonderful wife, the two of them rose to a level which I would say is simply reflective of the great Abrahamic traditions and the great prophets that we share, and converted this tragedy into such a magnificent attempt at understanding, bridge building, and friendship that it has in itself become a great symbol and example of the kinds of things that are possible in the 21st century. So thank you, Judea. I would very briefly make 2 or 3 points. The first being, why is it important that we have this dialogue at all? Why are we here this evening? Why do we think it's important? Well, the brief answer is that anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism are at their height in the Muslim world. I traveled last year with a group of young Americans. We conducted questionnaires. We met presidents and princes and imams. We went to madrasas. We addressed audiences as large as this in madrasas. And we wrote a book, the book called Journey into Islam. And the sense we got was that there is high levels of anti-Americanism / anti-Semitism. It's like a tidal wave, and it's growing. Similarly, there's a mirror image here in the West. Islamophobia or misunderstanding or even dislike of Islam is also growing. All the polls, the Pew and other polls confirm that the chasm, the gap between Islam and the majority population is not decreasing. That chasm is growing. So we have a double problem. We have a problem over there and we have a problem over here. And therefore the need to bridge this becomes imperative. You're here to say we can make that bridge. And why it's important to each one of us. This is not a theoretical discussion. This is not an academic discussion. This is a matter of life and death. And when I say death, I have to point to this young man who was brutally taken away in Karachi, the country I come from, which is in the news again. And you're seeing the violence. And you're seeing the encroachment of
a savagery and a barbarism on all the tenets and pillars of society, even in Pakistan, even as we speak. So it's a battle that is contemporary, and here's how it involves you. Islam is not an alien, exotic, foreign religion anymore. It is a religion all around us. 1.4 billion people. And by the middle of this century, 1 out of 4 people on this planet will be Muslim, according to the demographic trajectory. 7 million Muslims here in the United States. 57 nations in the world. 1 nuclear for the time being. And the chances are in the next decade or 2 decades, there may be 5, 6, 10. Right now, we have young American troops in Iraq, in Afghanistan. There's a direct involvement, American involvement in Somalia, in Pakistan, all Muslim countries. The worst opponents of the United States, the most wanted on the terrorist list, Osama bin Laden, Mullah Omar and so on, Muslim. The closest allies, Musharraf of Pakistan, Karzai of Afghanistan, all Muslim. Now when you add all this up, don't you think it's imperative we need to understand Islam? You can't simply sit back and say, well, that's something over there. America and the Muslim world are now joined at the hips. This is the relevance of Danny Pearl, who long before it all began was already out there trying to create understanding, genuine understanding, living among people, talking to people, really making friendships and creating bridges.